Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Cover One pregame show. I am your host for tonight, David Tilton at Tilt Money on Twitter, and I am joined by two very talented gentlemen. We're doing a little bit of a mashup tonight of three different shows on the Cover One network. We got me from the Area Hour. We got Aaron Quinn 716 on Twitter from Cover One fame, if you will, game preview show, and he'll be on tonight post game as well with you. And another man of many talents, writer, live streamer, Rob Quinn 619 on Twitter, one of the hosts of Cover One Roundup that normally slots in at this time. But we got Monday Night Football tonight, gentlemen. Bills play in just over an hour, and it's been a long wait this whole weekend, going back to the Thursday night game. We've had to deal with a bunch of waiting, as we always do in these primetime games, and especially on the Monday night one. But what did you guys do? How are you feeling? How did you keep busy today? How'd you keep busy this weekend, Aaron?
Well, first of all, I think we call this Between Two Quins is the show title, right, Rob?
I like that.
Yeah, no, this has been a weird week, man. If anyone knows and listens to our show, this type of stuff, primetime games, Monday night games, it really messes up my whole week. I'm a fine-tuned, high-efficiency machine, and whenever this throws a wrench in everything that I do, I need 1 o'clock on Sundays to maintain my schedules and keep it going. But it was nice to be able to have some time to prepare for this one, right? Like, I don't know that people that aren't making content realize what goes into getting that content. That all 22 film doesn't come our way. Eric and those guys, we don't get it till Tuesday, Wednesday sometimes. DVOA doesn't drop till Tuesday sometimes, and to break all that stuff down, I like to go through those explosive plays and tracking all that data. Like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, those days are full of just getting data, and then you're trying to break it down through till Sunday. So getting the extra day for a game like this is actually pretty cool because it gives you a little bit more time to breathe and look into some of that stuff. So I spent most of the week kind of just getting ready for this game and breaking down all that data.
Rob, how about you? What would you do today to pass the time?
I just spent some time decorating for Christmas.
Yes.
Spent yesterday, got to watch some football around the league. Usually I'm working, so it was good to just relax and watch. But I'm a big 1 p.m. Sunday guy, so Monday night kind of messes up the routine, but it's good to be in the primetime slot.
Yeah, well, I guess for you, this schedule is good because this will be your normal time slot anyway for the roundup. So I'm flashing the inactives there down on the bottom of the screen. But before we get to dive into the Bills-Pats game, let's take a quick recap around the league as to what kind of happened Sunday and obviously Thursday night. You know, that has kind of affected somewhat the outcome, or will affect somewhat the outcome of the standings in tonight's game. So yesterday we had the Chargers beat the Bengals. We had the Raiders lose in the AFC to Washington. Obviously, we saw the Ravens go for 2 at the end of that Ravens-Steelers game, and that kind of had that was some mixed opinion on kind of what people were rooting for in that game. You had some people saying, like, let's just get the Steelers out of here. Some people saying, hey, well, you know, the Steelers, if they win, the Ravens, the 1 seed is kind of still up for grabs. So you had the Ravens-Steelers game come down to that. And obviously Miami won again, which is kind of annoying. They're kind of annoyingly hanging around. But again, they're 6-7. So as it's been kind of stated a lot on social media today and across a bunch of content, all the division leaders right now are 8-4. In the AFC, obviously the Titans are idle this week. So this game tonight is for the division lead, but as it stands right now, after how the games played out yesterday, the Pats are currently the 1 seed in the AFC. Now, Aaron, I know you had some opinions on sort of what the 1 seed means this year, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Does that make this game even more amplified, the fact that the Pats are the 1 seed, and should we even care that the Pats are the 1 seed right now?
I mean, to an extent, we should always care, right? You want the bye week. I think that's the most important part about getting the 1 seed. Home field advantage. I don't know how much home field advantage is a thing or not. I think the fans definitely make an impact, but everybody's complaining about the weather, right? The weather's probably going to be bad in January in Buffalo and really most of the Northeast. So I don't know how much that impacts it. But this year specifically, where you're looking at, I don't know who the good teams are. I don't know if there is a really runaway favorite great team that I'm scared to go travel to their house and win a game. So with that said, for me this year, even with this big game up ahead of the Bills tonight, it's not about this. I want the Bills to win more than anything. I hate the Patriots. I want first place. I want the 1 seed. I want that bye. but it's really about getting into the playoffs and getting hot at the right time. I really believe this every year, that the team that gets hot at the right time, that's what matters the most going into the playoffs. But I think this year it might be even more true, because I don't know that any of these teams stand out as like unbeatable contenders. So it's playing the best football going into the playoffs and making a run out of it, I think is going to matter the most.
And Rob, before we get to you, we got a super chat coming in here from Jesus, $25. Love your content. Great to see Tilton here and Judge crazy weather. Go Bills. And we're going to hit on the weather here in a second. Thank you for that super chat. Rob, does the 1 seed matter? Do you think the 1 seed matters more or less this year?
So I think having the 1 seed always matters, establishing yourself as one of those top teams. And then, like Aaron said, getting that bye is extremely important to rest up, especially with Buffalo having an earlier bye in the season to kind of get healthy if you are banged up at that point. But looking on the other side, like we all know, the AFC doesn't have a real juggernaut team right now. So you have the Baltimore Ravens, the Patriots, the Chargers, the Chiefs, who are putting it together, and Tennessee, who's not as scary as they were earlier in the season. So all these teams are beatable. We've seen them lose some shaky games, all of them. So I think the 1 seed is going to go to the team, like Aaron just said, that gets hot at the right time. And those are the teams that usually make the Super Bowl run. So I think you'd like to have that number 1 seed just for pride and ego, but I don't think it really matters as much as it might have in previous years.
Yeah, and I guess to play devil's advocate, right? I mean, the 1 seed, maybe doesn't matter as much because it maybe is the team that gets hot, like Aaron said, going into the playoffs. But at the same time, if we're seeing all these teams, right, that are a little bit inconsistent, and we're saying, hey, there's not really that one, elite team, the one team that's kind of looking unbeatable. Maybe it does matter more to get that 1 seed, so you play one less game in a season where you're inconsistent, and you don't have to run the risk of playing that extra game. But yeah, I mean, obviously there are other things that go along with it, getting the home field throughout the playoffs and all of that. So, some people
look at New England this year. Gillette Stadium under Tom Brady's rule was unbeatable. You weren't going to go into Gillette and beat the New England Patriots. Now that there's a chink in that armor, like if New England gets the 1 seed, traveling to New England isn't as scary. I think their losses have come at home this year, so which is kind of surprising in a Bill Belichick team for them to lose at home. So there's some of that built in there too.
Yeah, I mean, there's still we're 11 games in with a 17-game season. There's still 5 games to go. So, I mean, a lot can still happen. It was just a few short weeks ago where we thought like the 1 seed was totally out of the question. Now it's kind of back in play. So you just never know. And so we'll see. On that front, the weather, speaking of fronts, big topic all week, and especially today. We've seen the clips coming out. We saw Joe B's clip with his product in his hair, something that Aaron, you and I don't have to worry about so much.
Never,
but
not once.
Not once.
Rob's got a little though going.
Yeah, Rob,
a little bit.
He's kind of got that Joe B
I'm not
look.
a Joe B level though. But.
No.
I mean, you got that Perino kind of Joe B look going though. So the weather, during game time, it's looking like gusts up to 25 to maybe 30 miles an hour. We saw the snow kind of flurrying in. AQ, you mentioned you might hear some sticks hitting your garage during this broadcast because the wind is pretty bad. Are we, as fans and as kind of putting our analyst hats on, are we making too much of the weather in a game like this? And, there's all this dome talk to build a dome, to not build a dome. I personally, I'm kind of over the weather talk. I see it as an excuse. I think Eric made this comment as well. Like, you have to be able to win this game. There's not going to be a dome there tonight, right? You got to play in this game tonight, one way or another. So are we overblowing the concern about weather, or should we really be concerned in this game where it seems like, at least on paper, a bad weather game like this might favor the Pats?
So I think what you said is right. Like, the Bills have to play tonight. You're not putting a dome down on Highmark Stadium this evening. It's not going to happen for the next 3 to 5 years, if we're being honest. So everyone that wants a dome, I personally don't care either way. I really have no strong feelings either way in a dome. But if you are somebody that wants it and are going to yell about it every single time there's bad weather, I got bad news for you. The next 3 to 5 years, at a bare minimum, you're not going to have that. We know that the proposals that the Pagulas have put together, they're saying if they were to build across the street, That's going to at least take 3 years. And they haven't even started those negotiations with the county yet. Like they're just in preliminary stages on that stuff. So that 3-year window starts whenever they agree. That's going to be like from construction to when that's built. So we're at least 3 to 5 years away from seeing that, if that's even a possibility at all. So this team, I think the concern is that this team is built to be a high-powered modern-day offense, airing the ball out, getting Josh Allen to throw those 20-plus air yard passes, putting the ball in the air. And the concern is that the wind or weather slows that down. And I get that. It is going to slow that down tonight. I'm watching ESPN right now. Punts are going up and hanging in the air. I think that's going to impact deep balls too. I don't think it's going to impact the short and intermediate game. Like, you still are underground. There is a lot of cover. There'll be some swirling winds, but I don't think it's going to impact it in the way people think. It's once that ball gets up, who knows where that's going to go. I can see some Matt Hawk punts coming right back into his face tonight. So there's a legitimate impact on a game like this. But my thing to the Dome people too is like, okay, so yeah, even say the Bills build that Dome in 3 to 5 years, fantastic. That controls 8 games for you a year. You still have to travel. Most stadiums are open air around the league, and there's a lot of cold weather stadiums. Then most of the entire North Atlantic, and you're going to have to at some point win games. You're not going to get the 1 seed every year. Nobody does that. It's tough to get the 1 seed. Now with only that one bye, I mean, you're really looking at you're going to have to win football games in weather in December, January, and into February if you want to be a perennial, sustained winning franchise. New England did it for 20 years. I'm from New England originally. I'll tell you, the weather's not a ton different. It's maybe a little bit windier here, and you get the lake effect snow, but every single year I've lived here in Boston, they've had just as much snow as we've had out here. Like, the weather's bad there. Green Bay has had sustained winning for 20 years. Pittsburgh has had sustained winning for 17, 20 years. All those stadiums are outdoor open air stadiums. So I agree with you, Till. It is a little bit of an excuse built into this that, you know, everybody just talks about the weather. Every team, the Patriots have to play in this tonight too. So it is an even playing field in terms of what we have to play up against. And this is a little bit of football. There's variables in football that you can't account for. When you play down in Miami, I've seen it happen to the Bills where a receiver goes up to get it and the sun's sitting right in their eyes and they drop catches. Like, there's weather everywhere. We saw it in Miami this year. There was crazy rain and 100 degrees. Like, those things also fatigue players. So weather exists all over the place. And it is just part of football, and it's what keeps this game interesting. There's all these variables that no matter how much control you think you have over the game, you can't control it all.
I mean, and if you think about the AFC, especially, I mean, Indy is really what I would consider the only, quote, northern team that's playing inside, right? Baltimore's outside, Pittsburgh's outside, Cleveland's outside.
Kansas City had win last night.
Kansas City, New England, obviously. And even in the NFC, you get a few more teams playing inside, like Minnesota and Detroit, but like
hasn't helped Detroit at all.
The AFC is really pretty much being played outside for the northern teams. So it's really interesting. I wanted to bring up this comment and get your thoughts, Rob, from Jason here. He says the Pats made all those Super Bowls in an open air stadium in the Northeast just fine. Same with the higher powered offenses of the 90s Bills teams. So is the weather thing a loser's mentality? I saw someone make that comment. Is that a loser's mentality, or is it like because of the way this Bills team is constructed, would it make sense for them to have that controlled sort of 8 games inside, and if possible, being home field in the playoffs, playing inside?
Yeah, so I think arguing over a dome or playing outside right now is just it doesn't make a difference. I mean, you have to go out there and play the game. But right now, I mean, the Bills are the high-powered, aired-out offense, and you would like to have a dome dropped over there tonight for the game. But that's not reality. For me, I'd be team dome just for the simple fact if I was going to games, I don't want to be sitting still in the stands with 45
fan experience.
Mile an hour. Right, for fan experience. As far as the football played on the field, I think it's cool. I think it's awesome for optics to see the blizzard and the elements and how teams have to adjust. So I think it's a benefit to the experience of watching at home. But as far as if a team has an advantage or not, no. I mean, every team has to go out and run the football and deal with adversity and find things to overcome. And that's what makes football such a great sport that we love to watch.
I think if this Bills team was like a power run type style team, like you wouldn't be hearing this type
Right.
of stuff from the fans, right? I think stylistically they're seeing, hey, well, maybe this would be a nice fit. We know Josh has had some of his, we'll call them more subpar games in rain and wind, but we will see how that plays out tonight. It does look pretty rough, like you said, AQ, on the previews and all the videos coming out.
Till I know you dig into DVOA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think one thing too that we're assuming on paper that this matchup doesn't favor the Bills in any way whatsoever, because I think the Bills' run game hasn't done a great job over the season. It's gotten a little bit better recently with the addition of Breida, and I think that on a night like tonight, you could use Allen and his ability to run the ball to your advantage a little bit. But if you look at especially last week, if you watch that film against the Titans, Patriots defense is susceptible to explosive runs, which I'm a big explosive play guy. That stuff matters. And when you look at DVOA, the Bills are the 19th rated rushing team, which isn't great. Patriots are 9th rated, but when you flip it to the defensive side of the ball, Patriots are 10th in rush defense and the Bills are 4th. So the Bills have a very good rush defense going up against a pretty good rush team. And the Patriots don't have a great rush defense. They are top 10, but it's getting worse as the season goes on. Versus not a great rush team, but and also they give up the third most explosive plays in the run game in the NFL right now. So those things matter. And I think that we just see that this is a clear win for the Patriots with the weather and the ground on paper. I don't know that it's that clear.
Well, that's a perfect segue because we're going to start diving into this game now, talking about the Bills offense against the Patriots defense. And you mentioned maybe as we dive into these numbers a little bit deeper and get some more advanced eye on these analytics, there is actually some holes in this Patriots armor on defense. And you mentioned the explosive plays on the ground. If you're the Bills tonight and you see this weather and you're kind of going into this game planning like, okay, well, maybe we do have a chance to, do some damage on the ground tonight. You look at the inactive list, you see Stevenson and McKenzie both inactive, but one guy you don't see on the inactive list tonight is Zach Moss. So you've got Zach Moss active, you've got Devin Singletary active, and Matt Breida active. So reports are that Breida is kind of out there practicing kick returns, but he could still be mixed in on the ground as well. So, Rob, I'll start with you. Bill's game plan tonight against the Patriots, knowing that we've got these three backs active and knowing what the weather is going to be throughout tonight, what would you do if you're the Bills in this situation?
I mean, obviously they want to establish the run. We've said that every week this season, and it hasn't gone according to plan. So I think that if they're not able to really run the ball, they're going to have to do some option and RPO stuff. But I really want to see Cole Beasley get involved. I mean, the Patriots have some big linebackers that are thumpers and downhill guys, notably Juwan Bentley. I really liked his game, but I think if you get him in space with a guy like Beasley or even Breida on some angle routes or things like that, that he can really be exposed. Bentley's allowed 21 catches for 206 yards, 130 yards after the catch. So I think he's a guy that you can get some quick game against and pick up some extra chunks of yards. So obviously you want to get the ball going on the ground and speed the game up that way. But I also think that the quick passing game is going to really have to be leaned on, and I think passes over the middle of the field to guys like Beasley and Breida or Singletary and Knox are going to be key.
Yeah, the quick passing game seems to be the top of the list to me as to what we want to try to, exploit here. The wind that will obviously take some of the wind factor out. We've well documented that the Bills from a yak standpoint are really not one of the better teams in the league there. And so any bonus yardage you can get through yak from a guy like Beasley or from a guy like Knox over the middle of the field, I think is really gonna help you out in this situation. So AQ, I saw you nodding your head when Rob mentioned Beasley. So
I love it.
What are your thoughts? Is tonight a Beasley night?
I hope so. And I was going to save some of that for my hot take, but I do think that Beasley, getting him going against these linebackers, that's the first thing that popped off to me on film is Bentley and Hightower. I'd love to see them with Beasley in the middle of the field. And I do think that is how you eliminate some of the issues in the passing game with this wind. They showed it on ESPN. Alex Smith throwing 5 to 10 yards. Not a big deal because those are short passes. You're not putting a lot of air under the ball. You're not getting the ball up into the air. You can be pretty consistent with that. And that's, some of this is what we drafted Josh Allen to be. Like, he has a big arm that can cut through wind in some of these things. So that short passing game can still be an extension of the run game in a game like this. And I think the Patriots have struggled with some of that stuff in the short passing game. And I think I want yards after catch. I've been pounding the table for that all year, but you can still just move chains. And that's what Cole Beasley's been able to do his whole time here in Buffalo, is just keep chains moving and keep those drives going. And so I would love to see a lot of that out of Cole Beasley. And I want Matt Breida to continue to be a featured part of this offense in the run game, whether or not he's returning kicks tonight or not. I know Moss is probably more built for this kind of weather per se, but I still see that explosive plays that they're giving up on the other side of the ball. And Breida is the most explosive option you have in the running back room. And I would like to see with, McKenzie and Stevenson out, we saw a little bit in that Green Bay game. Greg and I were sitting there. We've been talking about it all year that they were utilizing Breida in some of that jet sweep stuff, getting him out into space. Some even outside side wide receiver screen type plays. Get him the ball, manufacture an additional 4 to 5 touches outside of what we've seen him get, and try to get some explosive plays to break this game open with yards after catch. Because it's either Knox or Breida is going to give you your yards after catch right now. Stefan Diggs has never been that guy. He's not going to all of a sudden, because just like we're not getting a dome all of a sudden tonight. Diggs isn't all of a sudden become a yak guy. Manuel Sanders really isn't that guy either. Beasley, he's going to fall down before he gets hit pretty much every time. So you're going to get yards after catch out of those guys. So manufacture some extra touches to try to make that happen.
Yeah, I like that. And obviously the Bills offensive line generally, overall is not really a power blocking offensive line. So I like the idea of maybe using that as a strength, getting those guys out in space, getting Breida out in space, and letting those guys work a little bit up the field rather than trying to go toe-to-toe with that Pats front. Rob, what do you make of this? Seeing Josh Allen under center has been kind of a topic. Josh Allen under center more has been kind of a topic of late as well going in this game. Trey Ellis here says, guys, it's going to be hard to snap the ball in the wind. And we know the Bills love to play out of shotgun, but could you see tonight maybe the Bills go a little bit more under center? Maybe you see a few more design rollouts from Josh from under center, some play action from under center, which he's actually been quite good at throughout his career. Is there any weight to that of seeing Josh under center more?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think we've seen more of that in the last 2 games. And he's really been effective with it, getting under center, and they're running the ball better from under center, I believe. So yeah, I think that snapping the ball with these winds, and especially the gust, could come into play even if it's a fraction of an inch and it bounces off his hand. It's not something that you want if he's in shotgun. So I think we will see a lot of him under center, because then it gets the play action going better and all of those types of things. So I do think that's a valid concern.
It's going to be really interesting too to see how snapping and decision making is affected on things like punts and field goals. If they even try to kick field goals in this game, maybe if they have the prevailing wind, they might try it. But snapping on a field goal probably wouldn't be as affected as much. But punts are really going to be interesting. So we like the quick passing game tonight. We like that the backs are active. All 3 backs are active, getting them out into space, like AQ said. Beasley and Knox over the middle, like Rob said. So let's do a little quick fire over/under for Bills offensive players and just offense in general. And these are the lines per Sportsbook AG as of this afternoon. So, Rob, I'm going to start with you. First over/under for the night. Bills total points, 21.5. Bills are averaging 29.6 points per game on the season, which is 4th in the NFL. Vegas likes them a full touchdown under that tonight, obviously with the weather and the Pats D. But 21.5 points. What do you say to that for over/under?
I think over. I think they can hit 23, 24 points. I see them being able to score 3 times tonight.
AQ?
So I predicted them scoring 24. The weather is worse than I thought it was going to be up at game time here, but they are saying that towards the second half that it's supposed to continue to die down as it goes. It's not as bad as it was when Joe B posted that photo earlier, right, and it turned it to a snow globe. So 21, I'll take the over. I'll go over.
All right, I like it. Josh Allen passing yards. I'm going to start with Aaron, with you on this one. He's averaging 279.2 a game on the year. They've got him at 233.5 for this game. So about 50 yards under his season average. But again, given the weather, 233.5 maybe seems like a high number tonight. What do you say to that?
I always take the under. on quarterback yardage. I don't know why. I don't like taking the over. It's hard to bet that for me. So I'm going to go with the under, especially with the weather. And maybe he opens up in the second half a little bit, but I think the first half they're going to be pretty conservative with it.
Rob?
I'm saying over. I don't think that they're going to be able to run the ball too well, and I think that they're going to pass it a lot in that quick game. I think they'll be able to get some yards after the catch, so over.
All right. Slight difference of opinion.
We should make a side bet in our DMs.
Maybe like 250, 260.
All right, last offense over under. This one's interesting to me with Moss active now. They had Devin Singletary at 39.5 rushing yards. He's only averaging 41.7 on the year. And he's only been over 30 yards twice on the ground since week 4. However, 2 of those have come in the last 3 games with Zach Moss inactive. So Devin Singletary, 39.5 rushing yards. Rob, let's start with you on this one.
Under. I think Breida gets more touches and they get Moss involved.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Having Moss active, I think hurts. I don't know if that line must have been out prior to that news.
That was from like 2:00 this afternoon. So might have changed.
Yeah, if it hasn't changed, jump on that one. But
I'll have to check on that actually. All right, so that covers the Bills offense against the Pats D. Let's shift now to the Bills defense against the Pats offense. And obviously the heartbreaking news coming out of that Saints game. We haven't played in 10, 11 days. We're trying to put it out of mind, but Trey White is done for the year. Dane Jackson stepping in tonight as the guy. Maybe not the worst game for him to step in on actually. So Rob, I know you just put out a piece on cover1.net around Dane Jackson and what he's going to hopefully do to fill in for Trey White and some of the comments the coaching staff made on him. So let's start with you. What do you see for Dane Jackson tonight? What do you see overall the Bills doing on defense tonight to try to slow down this Pats offense?
So like you said, first and foremost, this is probably the best matchup to get him into a starting role that you're going to find against guys like Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. But we all know there's no replacing Tre'Davious White. He's an all-pro caliber cornerback. But I think Dane Jackson is ready to step in and play. You know, this is a guy that a lot of people were high on going into the season, taking over the job opposite him from Levi Wallace. And obviously that didn't happen. But it wasn't just fans talking and making that hype. It was the coaches, the players. I interviewed Jordan Poyer right before training camp, and I asked him at the end, I said, who's a player to watch out for this year to start? And he said, Dane Jackson. The guy's just a baller. So I obviously we're worried about what the defense is going to look like as a whole for the remainder of the season without Tre'Davious White, because you're not going to be able to do the same types of things. Dane Jackson or Levi Wallace are not going to be trailing the number 1 receivers like Trey White did. But I think that we'll see a reliable, steady cornerback that's physical, can tackle well, and isn't going to make huge mistakes. He's a 7th-round pick from last year. The coaching staff is very high on him. Leslie Frazier was really high on him, praising his confidence in training camp. And I think that he's ready. You know, he's been with the team for a year and a half now, so he knows the system very well. The players know him. It's not Trey White, but I think Dane Jackson is ready.
Yeah, I mean, AQ, I know you're a big Levi supporter, and I mean, now we're kind of, thankful that we have him here still, right? And that we didn't kind of move on from his experience this offseason. Dane stepping into this role now. I kind of liken Dane Jackson as a guy who's like pretty good at everything, but not great at anything. He's just kind of an all-around solid guy. He's willing to tackle. And we kind of saw that as well with a similar guy from Pitt that the Bills drafted this year in DeMar Hamlin. It fits that kind of mold. So, we talk a lot about this secondary as a whole. Jordan Poyer should be tracking for an all-pro season. Hyde should be tracking for a Pro Bowl season. This secondary as a whole is very, very good still, even without Trey. So for you, do you see the Bills maybe asking Poyer and Hyde to do some different things now to try to help cover up, the loss of Trey White? Or do you say, no, you know what, we're going to put the pressure on maybe our defensive line to try to get a little bit more pressure. We're going to do more with our front 7 to try to mask the back end. How do you kind of see that playing out with where the Bills might compensate to the loss of Trey White?
Well, I think for one, Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott believe in this scheme. I think a lot more than maybe we all realize. And that's the whole 1 of 11 right? Like as long as everybody's doing their 1 of 11, that they believe that if you're in the right place, you're supposed to be, that the scheme's going to work more times than not. And I think Dane Jackson actually fits that pretty well, coming from that pit right into college. And he's been here now for a few years. And within the scheme, Jordan Poyer was talking about that. He knows the scheme. He practices it for the last 3 years. I think that matters for the Bills to be able to kind of stay true to who they are. I think where you're going to see some changes, like Rob said, you're not going to be able to follow a number 1 wide receiver. I don't think that matters as much this week. Next week, when you play the Bucks, I think that matters, where you have nobody that can trail a Mike Evans. And there's probably a couple other matchups where that's going to matter. But right now, I think Dane gives you, like you said, a reliable, for a matchup like tonight, tackling matters, right? This is a yards after catch team. They're one of the most explosive passing offenses in football. And that's not because Mac Jones is pushing the ball down the field. It's because they're generating yards after catch, and tackling is where that comes in. And Levi's been a pretty good tackler here in his time here. Taron Johnson's one of the better tacklers on the team. And actually, if there was a knock against Trey White, it was his tackling, right? And I think that you actually might get an improved tackling from Dane Jackson, and even in run support. So as far as changing what they'll do, they won't be able to trail that one real true number 1 wide receiver. And I think maybe some spots where they would want to play man, maybe that they just don't have the horses to feel like they can play man in some of those spots. So you might see some more zone, which they're going to be comfortable in anyway. But I don't know that they make Poyer and Hyde do a ton different than they already do. I mean, those guys lead the defense as it is, and all those disguise coverage. I think keeping Dane in there is going to allow them, and that familiarity he has is going to allow them to continue to be who they are and disguise those coverages and have that communication.
Yeah, I like that. I wouldn't want to change it up too much. I had a theory around why the Bills don't really draft corners high, other than obviously Trey White, 4 years ago. But I always felt like with Frazier and McDermott and their backgrounds, it felt like corners and really the defensive backfield in general was, I thought, where they could squeeze the most out of what they had on the roster with coaching alone. They could take a guy and kind of mold him. They felt probably the most confident maybe in coaching that position group than maybe any other group on the entire roster. So from an investment standpoint, my theory was that they didn't really need to feel like they had to invest a ton there, because they felt like that was their bread and butter from a coaching side. We will see. As far as the game tonight, Damian Harris has been good this year. Ramondre Stevenson has been coming on lately. Obviously, Mac Jones is getting a lot of love recently in the media. Kendrick Bourne has been kind of emerging for them. They got my NC State guy and Jacoby Myers there catching passes. Hunter Henry has been, Dawson Knox gets a lot of attention, but Hunter Henry's been a touchdown machine as well this year. So if you're the Bills defense tonight, like what's your number 1 game plan to kind of slow down the Pats tonight and kind of make Mac Jones uncomfortable? Aaron?
So we had Mark Sofield on our podcast this week for the preview, and I totally agree with him on this, is getting pressure and specifically bringing some extra pressure off the edges. Taron Johnson coming on blitzes, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer coming up on those outside pressure blitzes. We've seen him be able to adjust pretty well as a rookie. When they drafted Mac, I was like, fantastic. Sean McDermott's going to make this kid's head spin for the first 2 years of his career. He's a little bit more polished than I was willing to give him credit for. He doesn't seem to get too flustered. He handles pressure pretty well, especially up the middle. But those pressures from the edges, you saw it in that Titans game. He doesn't have the athleticism to get away from it, and it does get to him. It just holds him up for a second. I think that's what you need to do. And when you mix that with some of the disguise coverage ability that the Bills have, we've seen them confuse guys like Tom Brady, you know what I mean, in their time here. So there's going to be looks that Mac Jones maybe has seen on film, but he hasn't seen it in a live game, and it's going to pause him for just a split second. And people can say what they want. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, the Bills don't generate any pressures. Well, the analytics don't suggest that at all. I think they've actually been very good at getting pressures. It's sacks that they haven't been able to get. So I think if you can mix in some of that disguise coverage, get him pressured, and then you can force him into some mistakes. He's thrown balls that he shouldn't, and guys have dropped them. It just hasn't turned into turnovers against the Patriots. And everyone talks about how few turnovers he's thrown lately, but I hate the term interceptable passes or whatever, turnover worthy plays, but there are some. They're on film there. And so the Bills have to take advantage of some of that. If he is going to push the ball downfield like he tried against the Titans, there was that one play that Patriots fans are retweeting all over where Byard just misses it. He just took a bad angle towards the ball. If he puts that up with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, that ball is coming back in Buffalo's favor. They're just too good of ball hawks. They're having too good a season. So, take away that short stuff, get some pressure off the edges, and it really starts with pressure. If you can pressure this guy and get to him off the edges, I think you could have a long night.
Rob, obviously the Bills don't have AJ Klein tonight. Was put on the COVID list. They're missing Trey, but otherwise relatively healthy. They're benching Vernon Butler tonight. They're going with Eli Ankou after he showed pretty well last week. This Bills defensive line should be ready to go right tonight. And I think if I'm the Bills and you're going to try to put the Pats in some tough situations, like Aaron and I mentioned on social media today, Bills #1 defense DVOA on first down. So is the key really to just force Mac Jones into some 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs tonight, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I think if you're the Buffalo Bills, you have to make Mac Jones beat you. They want to run the ball. They have Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, the 2 big physical backs. Obviously, the last 2 big physical backs the Bills played, they didn't fare too well. But now with Star Lotulelei back in the lineup, with Tremaine Edmonds back, I think that they're going to be able to force the Patriots into some 2nd and 3rd and long situations, which bodes well for them. Because Mac Jones, when they're in a rhythm and he has those short yardage situations, he's money. But I think that under pressure, they're going to be able to bring the pressure. Like Aaron said, against the Titans, they were able to get him. Even against the Falcons, there was 2 sacks that he took that were just really bad from both the front side and the back side. So I think that as good as Mac Jones has been for a rookie, that you can beat him with disguised coverages and things that veteran coaches like Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott can do to a rookie quarterback and just play with his head. This game plays right into the Patriots' hands offensively, I think, if they can run the ball. But they don't want Mac Jones throwing on 1st, 2nd, 3rd down. If the Bills get a lead, I think they crush them. But if the Patriots get up and the Bills have to play from behind and play catch up and let the Patriots get into a groove, I think that it could be very difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's kind of what somewhat plagued the Bills in that Titans game. They've never really game scripted Henry out of the game completely. Mm-hmm. I think if you can game flow and game script, Stevenson and Harris out of this game as much as you can, because the Pats are still going to run the ball even when they're down some, just because that's their bread and butter. Make Mac Jones beat you, like you said. I think that's the key, and that kind of leads into our first over/under on the defensive side. And I'll go with Rob first on this one. And this is an interesting one because Mac Jones has 6 touchdown passes over his last 3 games. He's averaging 2 per game. He only has 16 on the year. Vegas is setting the over/under on his passing touchdowns tonight at 1.5. Rob, what do you say to that?
I'm going to say under. I think he'll throw 1, but I don't know. The Bills' defense is too good, and I think the Patriots are just going to want to run the ball.
AQ?
Yeah, this one's tough for me too, because I think they've also done a good job of getting into the red zone or down that area and not being able to score, right? And so a lot of their scoring is coming from field goals. So I think you could see him throw 1. I agree. I'll take the under, but I can't, man. If he throws 2, that might be a long night for the Bills.
Yeah, I can in a night where Mac Jones throws 2 touchdowns tonight, I feel like the Pats are probably scoring somewhere between 20 and 30 points. If that's the case, could be interesting. They've got Damian Harris at 49.5 rushing yards tonight. He's averaging 58.5 on the year, but obviously Stevenson's been emerging lately. Harris is only averaging 42 per game over his last 3 games on the ground. They've got his number at 49.5, which I feel like is a pretty fair number. AQ, what do you think about that number for Harris?
I think that's pretty reasonable. I could take the over there because I think they are going to, especially in this first half, pound the ball and try to exploit what has been the only really Achilles heel of this Buffalo defense in the Sean McDermott era, which is running the ball on them. Like they've done better over this last year, but that has been the one vulnerability they have. So I think Belichick tries to exploit that and pounds at it with both the backs. I could see both the backs going. I don't know what the other over is, but I would take the over on either.
Rob?
I completely agree. I think 49 is like a reasonable number, but I would take the over.
Yeah, I think it's over too. I think both guys probably go over 50 yards tonight. If the Pats are in this game, or even like if they're somewhat close, they're just going to be pounding the rock. Like, I mean, you saw what Denver did last night to try to keep themselves in the game with Javonte Williams. I mean, they just kept feeding him the ball, and I could see the Pats trying to do something like that tonight with Harris and Stevenson. Last one I kind of made up on my own. Wasn't like a true Vegas bet, but I kind of made this up on my own. So Bills #1 DVOA in pass D, really, really solid against wide receivers, but only 13th overall against tight ends and pass D DVOA. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith combined over under half a receiving TD. So I'm basically asking you guys, will one of those two guys score a touchdown tonight? Aaron,
I'll go first. I do think if Mac Jones does throw the touchdown we're talking about, I could see going to a tight end in the red zone. So yeah, I'll say over a half.
Rob?
Yeah, I agree too. It would be like in a goal line situation, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hunter Henry's been really good down around the red zone in the goal line for Mac Jones this year. He's been kind of like a living and dying in fantasy land with those touchdowns, but he is definitely a guy you got to watch out for down in the red zone. All right, we're about 15, 20 minutes away here from signing off, so we're going to head into our last sort of segment of the night, and that's where we do our superlatives. So me and Steve do this for every pregame show, so AQ and Rob, I'm bringing you guys into our superlatives this week. We're not going to play any Creed tonight because we got the old C&D from them last time, so we'll just kind of talk about it. We always start with our what we call Take Me Higher player of the game, but the one rule is you cannot say Josh Allen. And this is the player on the Bills that we'll consider, a very important player most weeks that you think has to take his game to even another level tonight for the Bills to get the win. Someone that has a standout game tonight. Rob, I'll start with you.
I think it has to be Stefan Diggs. Obviously, I did my notes on this before I saw the video clips of the weather in Buffalo, but I'm going to stick with Diggs because this is the player in a game like this that you need him to step up. I don't know how much they're going to be throwing the ball his way, but when they do, it needs to be for an impact. We saw last year he had 3 touchdowns, 145 yards against J.C. Jackson mostly, and he's going to have to have a performance probably not as big statistically as that, but as much of an impact as those 3 touchdowns made last year, because J.C. Jackson's one of the top corners in the NFL, 7 interceptions. He's a ball hawk. So that's a matchup that I'm going to be watching all night. And I think Stefan Diggs really has to take his game to another level tonight to get the Bills in first place.
Yeah, I mean, he can really even more endear himself with Bills fans if in a tough weather game, he shows that toughness. And I mean, he has shown toughness. That was one thing that people didn't really talk about a ton with him when he came over, but that dude's a tough guy. And like, he will take a hit. He will, he will stand in there or stay in there and make the catch, tough catches. I like that. It'll be interesting to see if they maybe move him around a bit tonight to try to manufacture some touches for him. Maybe put him and Beasley both inside in some situations. We'll see. AQ, who's your Take Me Higher player for tonight?
I'm going to go with Matt Milano. I think when he's playing with his hair on fire and playing at that unstoppable level, this defense plays at another level as a whole. He rises the play of this defense. I think he's going to be important in the run game tonight and trying to stop what they're going to try to do on the ground. I think he's also going to be important in dealing with tight ends in that passing game. We're talking about Hunter Henry getting a possible touchdown. I think Matt Milano's ability in coverage, both on running backs and tight ends, is going to be super important in this game. Mac Jones isn't pushing the ball super far down the field, right? He's going to try to get those 2-yard dump offs to running backs to take it an extra 6-7 yards to get the first downs. Matt Milano flying to the ball, breaking up those screens, disrupting the run game is going to be important.
I really like that pick. It seems to me, outside of maybe Jordan Poyer, Matt Milano is the guy that probably plays with the most fire and the most emotion on the defense, or at least demonstrates it, right? Trey White's kind of, I don't want to call him goofy, but he's kind of more like the fun kind of guy. You don't see a ton of emotion out of a lot of guys on the defensive line, maybe at Oliver every once in a while when he makes a play. But Milano is really the guy outside of Poyer that stands out to me as like the guy that really can feed off of a big play like early in the game and let that emotion kind of take over for him and kind of fuel him for the rest of the game. My pick is Tremaine, Milano's running mate there. I think Tremaine needs to have a big game tonight. I think stopping the run, obviously, filling those gaps and making sure that we keep the Pats in those second and long, third and longs, and also in some coverage, right? Over the middle with Henry and Jonnu Smith. Edmonds is going to have his hands full tonight, and it's a time for him to kind of continue to put some of the doubters, silence some of the doubters, because he continues to have his retractors, but he can really make a good statement tonight with a good game. So I'll say Tremaine Edmonds to go along with Milano. All right, our next superlative is the wild card player of the game, and this could be for good or bad reasons. A guy on the Bills that maybe is more of a role player, more of a kind of second tier, if you will, type of player, but could be important in deciding the outcome of this game, good or bad. AQ, I'll start with you on this one.
I'm hoping for a big day from Gabriel Davis. Actually, I think Gabriel Davis has earned the right to get more reps over the last few weeks. I think if they're going to try to establish the run game, I think they got to get Gabriel Davis out there for his run blocking. So it might not be a sexy stat line that we see from Gabriel Davis, but that ability for him to be part of the blocking in the run game and then leak out like we saw him a week ago or so on some of that play action stuff and get out because of the threat that he is in run blocking. So I think there's some maybe bigger play explosive ability for him. And he seems to be the guy that when they do need that type of big downfield play, he always is the one that's coming up with that stuff. So I think that could be sneaky because they're going to try to take away Diggs. I know we had a good game against the Patriots a year ago, but that Bill Belichick has seen that picture of him throwing up the deuces to JC Jackson that's been running through that locker room. They're going to try to take that away. They'll probably try to take Knox and Beasley away if they can also additionally do that. But so that benefit to the Bills in this wide receiver room is you can't take them all away. And Davis seems to be the guy that always leaks out that nobody can take away. So hopefully he can be the wild card and have a nice big game for himself.
Yeah, I like that, especially down in the red zone where they feel like the Bills really need to punch it in tonight, not settle for, who knows if they're going to be able to attempt field goals depending on what time it is during the game. But like you said, if they take Knox away down near the red zone, Diggs is a master obviously down there too, but they take Knox away, you got to like Davis, down in the red area. He had that one touchdown against Miami earlier in the year in the red zone, but he hasn't really had a lot of red zone looks otherwise. So we'll see. Rob, who's your wild card player for tonight?
I think it has to be Matt Breida. I think if the Bills want to get explosive plays, it's going to come from him, especially early. Just the juice he brings in the run game is so evident. We've seen that in the last couple of weeks he's got 27 touches, 176 yards, 3 scores in a limited role. I want to see more of him. I know a lot of people talk about the snow and the rain as an inside the tackles power run game for Zach Moss, but I don't think that's the case. I think you can get Breida in space, some outside zone, pass him the ball, and just create yards. And I think Breida's in for a big night.
I like that. My wild card player of the game, just because he's coming back from the COVID list, and it's going to be probably the toughest matchup he's had all year, is Spencer Brown coming back at right tackle. He's going to be lined up, I think, for most of the night against Matthew Judon, who plays most of his snaps on that side of the formation, about 2/3 of his snaps. And coming back, first game back, really tough matchup. Judon's been really good this year. This is one of those wild card plays that could go either way, right? If Spencer Brown has a good night, could be really good for the Bills. If he has a bad night, could be really bad for the Bills. So to me, Spencer Brown's a wild card coming back from the COVID list. All right, our next superlative, and Rob, I'm going to start with you on this one. This is our player on the Patriots that we hate them. Well, we hate all of them, obviously, but the guy maybe that we really need to respect that could single-handedly kind of make a difference for that team. Who is the one guy we absolutely have to respect on the Patriots tonight?
I was going to say Matt Judon, but I think I'm going to go with Mac Jones, just for the simple fact that he's a lot better than many will give him credit for, particularly Bills fans. Bills fans, I know it hurts to see. We thought the Patriots were going to be down for at least a few years after losing Tom Brady, and they had their year last year where that wasn't so hot. And then to see them back in first place kind of stings. And obviously it's a lot of the system. It's a perfect fit for Mac Jones, but you don't complete 70% of your passes for nearly 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns as a rookie without being good. And this is a game plan that I think, like I said earlier, plays right into his hands. They're going to want to get the ball out quick without a Tre'Davious White in the lineup. I think the Bills have to respect what Mac Jones can do. He's limited athletically. He's not going to make big plays with his legs. He's not going to push the ball downfield, but he makes the quick decisions. He gets rid of the ball quickly. So I don't think the Bills are going to be able to get after him much with the pass rush, maybe 1 or 2 sacks probably, but he's just so smart and makes quick decisions with the ball. And I think the Bills defense really needs to play fast and react, because I think Mac Jones is better than a lot of us have given him credit for.
I mean, I like that. I think people want to shit on Mac Jones, but like he actually has been pretty solid and like probably better than a lot of people thought he would be. And I think it's hard sometimes for fans to admit that, especially Bills fans, that he's been better than we thought or hoped he would be, but he has. Like, I mean, he just has. So AQ, who's the guy on the Pats we need to respect tonight?
Yeah, I do agree with you guys that he's definitely better. It's our insecurities that make us want him to be worse than he is. I'm going to cheat on this one, and I'm going to go sort of with just a group, which is their interior pass rush. I think guys like Barmore, Godchow, Lawrence Guy, I think those guys don't get the type of credit they deserve. And I'm still concerned, even with Williams kicking in and he's been playing well at guard, I'm still concerned with Botker at one of the guard positions. I'm still concerned with Morris having to help those guys in the interior. And I think interior pressure matters the most. So while Judon creates havoc, part of the reason you create so much havoc is there's also a lot of interior pressure for the New England Patriots. And so I'm concerned about that, and especially that in the run game. I don't know that they're going to be able to move Godchaw around or Barmore and stuff like that in that run game. And so that concerns me.
Yeah, that is a concern. And especially with, the shakiness we've had in the interior line for us this year, it's, people were like, oh, is Feliciano going to be back? I mean, would that have really made a huge difference? I don't know, right? That like he's that much better than Butker, if at all. So, who knows? It is definitely something to watch. I like that pick. And hey, it's our show. We can do whatever we want.
Right.
So
I can
next one is a fan favorite, right? And I want to see what the people in the comment section have to say as well about this one. This is your hot take, your biggest hot take. And I know, AQ, you were saving one maybe about Cole Beasley. So I'm going to start with you. What's your hot take for tonight?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that hot or not, but I'm going with a 10+ reception game for Cole Beasley in this one.
That's pretty hot.
I think he's an extension of the run game. We haven't seen him really be primary part of this offense for a few weeks. I know everyone's been pounding the table for feed Diggs, and I got bet they have been feeding Diggs. He's right up there with all the number one wide receivers in the NFL.
Debunked. That's debunked.
He's getting fed just fine. I think this is a feed Cole Beasley game where you're not going to push the ball deep down the field in this wind. You need something outside of, like Rob alluded to. I think they were going to try to run. They might not be able to run as much as they want. So to get some of that extension of that, get him on these linebackers, keep moving the chains. He's had a few weeks to heal from this rib injury, and then you got the extended 11-day break in between these games. Hopefully he's healthy and they feed him a bunch. And so I'm calling 10+ for Bees.
Love that. Rob, what's your hot take for tonight? And I'm going to start looking at some of the comment sections here.
I'm saying 100 total yards for Matt Breida.
I like it. Does that include kick return yards?
No, offensive yards. So I think they're going to really work to get him involved, as I've said multiple times throughout the show. So I don't need to elaborate on it that much, but I think that Breida's in for a big night.
I don't think this is a super hot take, but Thunderclock here says J.A. will not turn the ball over today. I mean, that if he doesn't, I really like the Bills' chances of winning. I think turnovers could be a huge factor in this game. Field position, obviously, in these conditions. Look, my hot take of the game tonight is there will be no field goals made in this game by either team. I just feel like both teams are going to kind of get into that situation where they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know if we're really going to be trying a field goal here. I mean, I know the winds are supposed to die down later in the game, but it's a hot take for a reason. Like maybe, who knows, something weird happens. Bills find themselves in positions where they go for it. Pat, same thing. We've seen Belichick not afraid to go for it as well. So I'll say no field goals tonight at all for either team as my hot take. So finally, to wrap up tonight, we are going to paint a picture of how this game is going to play out with a score prediction before we wrap up and give you guys a few minutes to get settled in before the game starts. So Rob, I'm going to start with you. Paint us a picture on how you think it goes tonight, and what is your prediction for the game?
So I think the Bills are able to stop the Patriots rushing attack, force Mac Jones to make some bad decisions. I think they intercept him twice. Josh Allen protects the ball. They run the ball well, and they win 24-17.
All right. AQ, paint us a picture.
So I think the only way the Bills, in my opinion, win this game is getting up early, and I think they're able to do that. I think they get the ball, get up early, and then just keep that lead. And Mac Jones isn't at the point yet where he's good enough to beat this defense. He hasn't had that rookie game where he goes up against a really solid defense and just struggles to move the ball. We've seen him struggle to get points on the board, and like you said, where there's going to be decisions made of do you kick it or not. They've gone with kicking, and they've been able to get away with that against teams that maybe aren't as good as the Bills and the Bills defense. And so I think those decisions are going to maybe backfire on them a little bit with this win, and the Bills are able to keep ahead of them. I think they score late to make it a little bit closer than it appears that it is, but I have it 24-20. I've had that as my score all week long. I think Vegas is really good at what they do, and I think that's right about where this game ends up.
Yeah, I think the line dropped down to about 39.5, so that puts it very close to that number. You're at 44, so really close. Just it's crazy to think that 44 isn't over, but hey, that's where we are with this game tonight. Yeah, I actually think both teams probably get out of the gate slow on offense tonight. I just have this feeling, the Bills haven't been the fastest starting team consistently this year on offense, and I kind of maybe see that continuing a little bit tonight. Take him a while to feel out kind of how this game flow is going to go. I do like that Breida, Moss, and Singletary are all active. I do like Rob's hot take prediction of Breida getting over 100 yards on offense. I think he could definitely be an X factor in this game. But let's not forget about Singletary. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry. And obviously the Bills rushing game doesn't get a lot of praise. But for as much crap as we've given the offensive line this year, as much as we've kind of said the running game isn't really doing its thing, and the limitation Singletary has, he's still averaging a pretty good clip. And he has been kind of the preferred guy to run the ball really all season. So I like the Bills maybe trying to get some semblance of a running game back with Spencer Brown, bringing some attitude back to that offensive line group. But I do think it's slow out of the gates, and it is a little bit of a lower scoring game. So I'm kind of right there with you guys. I predicted no field goals. So I'm going to say 21-20. The Pats miss an extra point. And the Bills win by 21-20, just hitting that over 39.5. So, guys, any final thoughts before we wrap here and get ready for this game? Aaron, start with you.
Yeah, try to enjoy it. I don't know what the outcome of this game is going to be. It could go the other way for Buffalo tonight. This is a good Patriots team. Whether or not we want to admit it, Mac Jones is better than we think. They have a very good defense. Bill Belichick's still one of the best coaches in the world. So losing is an option. Like, it's very real that they could lose this game. Most people are picking the Pats to win this. It's close everywhere you're looking. And my real point to anyone listening is it's not the end of the world. The wheels are not falling off if the Bills lose this game tonight. They're still a playoff team. And like I said earlier, in this wacky 2021 season, being a playoff team matters. And if they can get over this and get hot at the right time, then we'll look back at this game and be like, wow, that was crazy. That didn't matter all that much. So the season's not over. There's still a lot of football left. But hopefully we don't have to even worry about that. You can come join us on the post-game show and we can celebrate a victory tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if the Bills win tonight, they jump into the 2 seed. Obviously, the Titans have the tiebreaker over them as of now. And if they lose, they're still in the playoffs. They'll be in the 7th seed if they lose as of tonight, and we'll see kind of where it goes from there. Rob, any final thoughts from you?
No, Aaron probably pretty much covered everything I was going to say, but yeah, I don't think the season's over if they lose, but it'd be huge if they win, as we all know. So
yeah, and it just won't be as insufferable on social media and all the things that go along with that after a Bills loss. So for that alone, and for Aaron's sanity on the post game show, let's just hope for a victory. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight and kind of getting this little collab going of all the different shows. I was super pumped to host this show with you guys. First time doing a live show with either of you. So I appreciate that. Really great insight as always. Thank you to the comment section, of course, as always, for the added ideas and commentary. So perfect timing, 8:15. Go grab a beverage, get yourself ready for this game, and we'll see you at the post game with AQ, Greg, and Anthony. So let's go. Go Bills.
Go Bills.